Scattered light. Nisha Mather adjusted her camera lens, focusing on the whirling dancers in the courtyard of the ancient palace. The colors of their gagras created a kaleidoscope against the amber sandstone walls. Bathed in the golden light of sunset, she zoomed in, capturing the joy on their faces, a joy she no longer believed in for herself. Beautiful, isn't it? A voice beside her made her jump slightly. She turned to find a man in simple linen clothes, his sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms dusted with what looked like stone powder. He wasn't looking at her, but at the dancers, a gentle smile playing on his lips. The festival or the architecture? Nisha asked, returning to her viewfinder. Both, they complement each other. He gestured toward the intricate yalis filtering sunlight into patterns on the stone floor. One breathes life into the other. Nisha nodded absently, adjusting her aperture to capture the light patterns. She didn't have time for small talk. Her documentary deadline was looming, and the Uda Hipper Cultural Festival was the centerpiece. You're missing the best view, though, he continued, seemingly oblivious to her disinterest. Despite herself, she looked up. And what's that? Follow me. He started walking toward a narrow staircase hidden behind a carved pillar. 5 minutes. You won't regret it. Against her better judgment, Nisha packed her equipment and followed. Her producer would love aerial shots of the festival, she reasoned. The stairs wound upward, leading to a small terrace that overlooked not just the courtyard but the entire city and the lake beyond. The setting sun painted everything in shades of gold and crimson, and the sound of tabla and sitar floated up from below. I'm Vikram Rather, he said, extending a hand. I'm working on the palace restoration. Nisha Mather, documentary filmmaker. She shook his hand briefly, then immediately set up her tripod. This is perfect for my closing sequence. Thank you. Vikram leaned against the parapet, watching her work. What's your documentary about? Fading traditions in modern India, she replied, not looking up from her camera. This festival is one of the few places where ancient art forms are still preserved in their authentic form. Like restoration work, he mused, preserving the past while acknowledging we can never fully return to it. Something in his words made Nisha pause. She glanced at him properly, for the first time warm brown eyes, a thoughtful expression, stubble that suggested long hours of work rather than a fashion choice. You sound like someone who should be in my documentary, she said, surprising herself. Vikram laughed. I'm more comfortable behind the scenes. Like you, I imagine. What makes you think that? He gestured to her camera. You capture others' stories. I wonder who captures yours. The words hit too close to home. Since Rohan had left 2 years ago, taking their shared dreams and leaving only doubt in their place, Nisha had retreated behind her lens, finding safety in documenting others' lives rather than living her own. No story to tell, she said curtly, returning to her work. Vikram didn't press. Instead, he pointed out architectural details she might want to capture, the history behind certain carvings, the symbolism in the palace design. Despite herself, Nisha found him becoming part of her footage, his hands gesturing toward a 16th century mural, his voice explaining the meaning behind the peacock motifs. As the festival lights began to twinkle below and stars appeared above, Nisha realized she'd spent hours in his company. Her usual walls had momentarily lowered, allowing something unfamiliar to slip in, a warmth she'd forgotten existed. I should go, she said abruptly, packing her equipment. Early shoot tomorrow. Vikram nodded. The morning light on the east wing is exceptional. If you're interested, Nisha hesitated. I work alone, of course. He smiled, unoffended. But if you change your mind, I start at sunrise. The craftsmen have stories that would add depth to your film. As she descended the stairs, Nisha tried to dismiss their encounter. She was here to work, not to make connections, especially not with someone whose thoughtful eyes seemed to see through her carefully constructed barriers. Yet as she reviewed her footage that night in her hotel room, she found herself pausing on a frame where Vikram's hands traced the outline of a restored carving, his expression one of quiet reverence for the past, against her better judgment. Nisha set her alarm for sunrise. Paper lanterns. The east wing of the palace was bathed in honeygold light. When Nisha arrived at dawn, she found Vikram already there, deep in conversation with an elderly craftsman whose weathered hands were delicately applying gold leaf to a restored doorframe. They didn't notice her immediately, and she used the moment to capture them in silhouette against the rising sun, 2 generations connected by ancient knowledge. You came, Vikram said when he finally spotted her, surprise and pleasure warming his voice. For the documentary, Nisha clarified, adjusting her camera strap. Your craftsmen have stories I need. He nodded, a knowing smile playing at his lips. Of course, Rayeshji here is a 5th-generation Minakari artist. His family has been adorning the palace with enamel work since the 1800s. The old man's eyes crinkled with pride as Vikram translated for him in rapid Hindi. Soon, Nisha found herself immersed in filming, as Rajesh demonstrated his art, his gnarled fingers steady as they traced intricate patterns in brilliant blues and reds. He says the palace remembers, Vikram translated softly as they watched Rajesh work. Every love story, every betrayal, every whispered secret, the walls absorbed them all. A romantic notion, Nisha replied, but she couldn't deny the goosebumps that rose on her arms. You don't believe in romance? Vikram asked, his tone curious rather than judgmental. Nisha adjusted her focus. buying time. I believe in capturing truth. Romance is often the opposite, a beautiful illusion that doesn't survive reality. Instead of arguing, Vikram simply nodded. Then we share the same goal. Mine is just buried under centuries of history. Throughout the morning, he introduced her to other artisans, stone carvers, fresco painters, mirrorwork specialists, each adding rich texture to her documentary. Nisha found herself captivated not just by their stories, but by the way Vikram interacted with them, with genuine respect and a complete absence of hierarchy. By mid, when the harsh sun made filming difficult, Vikram suggested a break. There's a place I think you'd appreciate, he said, leading her through a maze of corridors to a small garden courtyard hidden within the palace walls. A single tree provided shade over a stone bench, and the sounds of the festival seemed distant here. The queen's private garden, he explained as they sat, a sanctuary within a sanctuary. Nisha unpacked her lunch, a simple sandwich from her hotel. Vikram pulled out a steel tiffin, offering her a portion of homemade aloo paratha and pickle. My mother's recipe, he said. She packs enough for two, always believing I'll make friends wherever I go. A hopeful woman, Nisha said, accepting the food. She had to be. After my father died, hope was all we had. Vikram's voice carried no self-pity, just a quiet acknowledgement of fact. Something shifted in Nisha's perception of him. Is that why you restore things? Because of what you lost? Vikram considered this as he chewed. Perhaps, or maybe it's because I believe damaged things aren't meant to stay broken forever. The words hung between them, weighted with meaning neither acknowledged. And you? He asked. Why document rather than create? Because reality is more interesting than fiction, she replied automatically, and safer. His eyes held hers, gentle but perceptive. Nisha looked away. We should get back to work. The light will be good for the courtyard soon. They fell into an unexpected rhythm over the next few days. Vikram would suggest locations with the best light or introduce her to people with stories worth telling, and Nisha would pretend she was merely tolerating his presence for her documentary. But somewhere between the morning shoots and evening reviews of her footage, she found herself looking forward to his insights, his quiet observations, the way he understood her need for silence when she was composing a shot. On the fifth evening, the festival organizers released paper lanterns from the palace rooftop. Nisha filmed the spectacle, capturing the lanterns as they rose like earthbound stars over the lake city. Make a wish, Vikram said, appearing beside her with a lantern of his own. I don't believe in wishes, she replied, but she lowered her camera. Humor me. He offered her the lantern. Consider it cultural immersion for your documentary. Their fingers brushed as she took it from him, and Nisha felt a jolt of awareness she immediately tried to suppress. Together, they released the lantern, watching as it joined hundreds of others in the night sky. What did you wish for? He asked softly. If I tell you, it won't come true, she replied, surprising herself with the playfulness in her voice. Vikram laughed, the sound rich and genuine. So you do believe, after all. In that moment, with lantern light reflecting in his eyes, and the night air filled with music from below, Nisha felt something crack inside her, a hairline fracture in the walls she'd built. Sometimes, she whispered, I wanted. He moved closer, his hand finding hers in the darkness. Nisha, he said, her name like a question on his lips. She knew she should pull away, return to the safety of her camera's viewfinder. Instead, she found herself leaning toward him as he bent his head, his lips meeting hers in a kiss as gentle as the floating lanterns above. One kiss, brief, tender, questioning, then he pulled back, his eyes searching hers. I leave for Delhi tomorrow, she said, her voice unsteady. I know. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. It's just a kiss, Nisha, nothing more. But as the lanterns disappeared into the night sky, taking their wishes with them, both knew he was lying. Fading distances. Delhi welcomed Nisha back with its familiar chaos, honking traffic, crowded metro stations, and the comforting anonymity of being just another person rushing through the city. She threw herself into editing her UDA footage, telling herself that the hollow feeling in her chest was simply post-project emptiness, not the absence of someone she barely knew. The first message came 3 days after her return. Rajesh-G asked about you. He says the palace misses your camera. Nisha stared at her phone, cursor blinking in the reply field. Professional courtesy suggested a response. Self-preservation argued against it. After 20 minutes of internal debate, she sent a simple reply. Tell him the camera misses the palace too. She didn't expect what followed: a daily photograph of the restoration work, each accompanied by a small observation or thought, a detail of newly restored mirrorwork. The reflections multiply endlessly, like memories. A worker's hands carefully mixing traditional lime plaster. Some techniques cannot be improved upon, only rediscovered. Against her better judgment, Nisha began responding with her own images, snippets of Delhi life, behind-the-scenes glimpses of her editing process. Nothing personal, she told herself, just professional exchange. Then one evening, as she worked late in her apartment, her phone rang. Instead of pinging with a message, Vikram's name flashed on the screen. I'm sorry to call, he said when she answered, his voice instantly transporting her back to Udi. But there's something you should see, and I couldn't capture it properly in a photo. He switched to video call, turning his camera toward the palace at sunset. The restoration work had progressed, and the newly cleaned sandstone glowed like ember in the dying light. But what took her breath away was what he'd discovered: a previously hidden fresco revealed during the renovation, depicting two lovers separated by distance, reaching toward each other across painted space. 17th century, Vikram explained, his voice soft with wonder, hidden beneath layers of later additions. The court records suggest it was commissioned by a princess forbidden to marry the man she loved. It's beautiful, Nisha whispered, something tightening in her chest. I thought of you immediately, he said. Then, after a pause, I think of you often, Nisha. The simple honesty of his words broke through her carefully constructed defenses. That night, their conversation stretched until dawn broke over Delhi, ranging from their work to their childhoods to their dreams, everything except the kiss they'd shared, and what it might mean. Weeks passed. Video calls became their ritual, Nisha showing him the nearly completed documentary, Vikram sharing discoveries from the restoration. They never defined what was happening between them. This connection across kilometers that neither had sought but both now cherished. My work here is almost finished, Vikram said one evening, his face serious on her screen. I'm coming to Delhi next week, for a conference on heritage conservation. The implications hung between them, unspoken. I could show you around, Nisha offered, her heart racing. For your conference? His smile told her he understood what she couldn't say. I'd like that. Monsoon. Memories. The monsoon arrived in Delhi the same day as Vikram, turning the city into a watercolor painting of gray skies and reflective puddles. Nisha waited at the coffee shop near his hotel, watching raindrops race down the window and trying to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. When he walked in, shaking water from his umbrella, their eyes met across the room. The distance between them, both physical and emotional, suddenly collapsed in the space of a heartbeat. You're here, she said as he sat across from her, a statement of wonder rather than fact. I'm here, he confirmed, his eyes never leaving hers. For 3 days, they navigated a delicate dance of closeness and restraint. Nisha showed him her Delhi, not the tourist version, but her personal map of the city, the small cinema that screened documentary films, the chai stall where she found clarity during creative blocks, the quiet corner of Lodi Gardens where she went to think. Between his conference sessions, they explored together, finding shelter from sudden downpours in museum doorways and book cafes. They talked about everything and nothing, their conversation flowing as naturally as the rain outside. Yet neither mentioned the kiss they'd shared on the palace rooftop, as if acknowledging it might break the spell of their reunion. On his final evening in Delhi, Nisha invited him to dinner at her apartment. She cooked her grandmother's butter chicken recipe, filling the small space with aromas of garam masala and cardamom. Through the open windows came the sound of rain and distant thunder. To finding each other, Vikram said, raising his glass of wine. In the most unexpected place, Nisha added, clinking her glass against his. As they ate, she told him about the distribution deal she'd secured for her documentary. He shared news of his next restoration project in Jaipur, closer to Delhi than Udaipur had been. I've been thinking, he said as they washed dishes side by side, about what you said in about romance being an illusion that doesn't survive reality. Nisha's hands stilled in the soapy water. And I think perhaps it's the opposite. He took a wet plate from her, drying it carefully. Reality is what gives romance its meaning. Without the mundane, these dishes, this rain, our separate lives, the connection we feel would be just another fantasy. She looked at him then, really looked at him, seeing not just the man who had kissed her beneath floating lanterns, but the one who sent thoughtful messages, who listened when she spoke, who understood her work because he approached his own with the same reverence. Vikram, she began, but the words tangled in her throat. He set down the dish towel, turning to face her fully. After Udaipur, I told myself it was just one kiss, that my heart would let you go. His voice dropped to a whisper. I was wrong. The confession hung between them, a truth too powerful to dismiss. Nisha knew she stood at a crossroads: retreat to safety or step toward uncertainty with this man who had quietly, persistently slipped past her defenses. Before she could decide, her phone rang. Her producer, calling about a last-minute issue with the documentary's final cut. The spell broke as reality intruded. By the time the call ended, something had shifted. The ease between them was replaced by a new tension, born of words spoken but not fully addressed. It's getting late, Vikram said, reaching for his jacket. My train leaves early tomorrow. Nisha nodded, walking him to the door. Rain still fell outside, turning the street into a river of reflected lights. This isn't how I wanted tonight to end, she admitted, standing in the doorway. How did you want it to end? He asked, his eyes searching hers. Instead of answering, Nisha rose on tiptoe and pressed her lips to his, a kiss that held both question and answer. His arms encircled her waist, pulling her closer as the kiss deepened, erasing months of distance in seconds. When they finally parted, breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. I still have to leave in the morning, he whispered. I know, she replied, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. But tonight, you're here. She took his hand and led him back inside, closing the door on the rain and the world beyond. Whispered promises. Morning came too quickly. gray light filtering through Nisha's curtains as she watched Vikram dress. Neither spoke much. The weight of his imminent departure filled the small bedroom. When his phone chimed with a taxi notification, he bent to kiss her one last time. "This isn't goodbye," he promised. "Jaipur's only a few hours away." Nisha nodded, trying to believe him. She'd heard such promises before, had watched distance and busy lives erode stronger connections than this fragile thing between them. After he left, she threw herself into work, finalizing her documentary and pitching new projects. They messaged daily, called when they could, but reality had indeed intruded: deadlines, commitments, the practical challenges of building something meaningful across distance. 3 months passed this way, with brief visits whenever their schedules aligned. Each reunion was sweet, each parting harder than the last. Nisha found herself thinking of Rajeshti's words about the palace walls absorbing every story. Her heart, it seemed, was doing the same, with Vikram collecting moments, glances, whispered words in the dark. Then came an unexpected email, an offer to document the final stages of the Udaipur Palace restoration, a full-circle conclusion to her original project. The timing aligned perfectly with a break between other commitments. Without overthinking, she accepted. She didn't tell Vikram. Something held her back, perhaps fear that returning to where they began would force them to define what they had become. Udaipur welcomed her back with the same golden light, the same bustling streets. The palace, however, had transformed. What had been scaffolding and dust was now restored, glory, intricate patterns cleaned to reveal their original brilliance. Structural damage healed so seamlessly one would never know it had existed. She found Vikram in the Queen's garden, exactly where they'd shared lunch months ago. He looked up from his notebook, surprise giving way to joy when he saw her. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "Standing quickly, documenting the restoration's completion," she replied, gesturing with her camera. "I didn't know you'd still be here." A shadow crossed his face. "I'm finishing final reports. I leave for Jaipur tomorrow. Always coming and going, aren't we?" Nisha tried to smile, but something in her chest ached. They walked to the palace together, Vikram showing her the completed work, the challenges overcome, the secrets discovered. As sunset approached, he led her to the rooftop where they had released lanterns and shared their first kiss. "I have something to show you," he said, guiding her to a small, newly restored alcove. Inside was the fresco he'd shown her over video called The Separated Lovers, reaching for each other across painted space. But now, restored to its full glory, Nisha could see what the damaged version had hidden. Around the edges were scenes showing the lovers' journey, their separation, their individual struggles. And finally, in the bottom corner, their reunion. The conservators found this last panel hidden under later renovations, Vikram explained. "It changes the entire story." Nisha studied the ancient painting, emotion tightening her throat. They found their way back to each other. Yes, Vikram's voice was soft. After years apart, they returned to where they began. She turned to face him, suddenly understanding why the fresco had called to him, why he'd needed to show her. "Vikram, I've accepted a position in Delhi," he interrupted, the words tumbling out. "The Heritage Conservation Board. It's permanent." Nisha stared at him, processing what this meant. "You're moving to Delhi." He nodded, taking her hands in his. "I told myself it was for the career opportunity, but we both know that's not the whole truth." Around them, the palace glowed in sunset light, witness to another story unfolding within its ancient walls. "What are you saying?" she whispered, needing to hear the words. Vikram drew her closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "That what began here with one kiss has become something my heart won't let go. That I'm tired of distance and temporary reunions. That I want to build something real with you. Nisha, as real as these walls that have stood for centuries." The simple honesty of his declaration broke through Nisha's final defenses. All the reasons to be cautious, to protect herself from potential hurt, seemed insignificant compared to the certainty she felt in his presence. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Documenting love stories is easier than living one." "I know." His thumb traced the curve of her cheek. "But some stories deserve to be both lived and told." As the first stars appeared above the palace, Nisha made her choice. Rising on tiptoe, she kissed him, not with the hesitation of their first kiss or the urgency of their nights in Delhi, but with the certainty of a decision made, a path chosen. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. "Let's see where our story leads." Around them, the ancient palace stood as testament to the endurance of things built with care and devotion, perhaps by time and circumstance, but never beyond restoration.